is great. I feel like I'm with a bunch of friends here. You guys are so friendly here. This is amazing. I was told early on to at least write something down, Kim, so you just don't ramble on. I'm going to ramble anyway, but I got a piece of paper that says, a little bit. My name is Kim. I'm an alcoholic. And my sobriety date is May 21st, 1991. And I'm so happy to be here. I got asked just a little bit ago, and it's just such an honor to share my story because it's such an honor to be part of this group, to be part of AA. It's just a life second to none. I say that a lot, and it just is true. Just wait, just hang on. Anybody that's new, just hang in there. It's going to get better and better. It's fabulous. I just want to say, I'm just going to give you a little background. I don't have a lot of background story as far as I'm from California, Hollywood, California. And no, I didn't know any movie stars. Tried, but didn't know any. And then when I grew up, I came to Florida. So I went right into the story. And I did want to mention first, before I do that, I have a home group. It's Progress Not Perfection. Oh, Progress Not Perfection. Woo! Wow, this is pretty amazing. Progress Not Perfection, it meets on Monday at 9:30 in the morning. And unfortunately, it's for women only. So just letting you know. And that's not an invite for you guys, by the way. Anyway, I lived in California and we moved to Florida when I was a teenager. It was quite a culture shock for me because California is kind of a liberal place. And when I came here, I was a hippie. And so I'm coming here and it was different. We'll just say it's different. And I remember I had a book on, when I went to the school, I had this book and it was Bob Dylan. You remember Bob Dylan, anybody? And so some guy looks at it, he's like, Bob Dylan, who's that? And I'm like, oh my gosh, where the heck am I? I'm not in Kansas anymore. So I graduated from high school, and when I was 17 years old, and the night that I graduated, I'm getting to my story, that was the first night that I ever had a drink. I was 17, it was graduation, and we were celebrating. We'd gotten, a bunch of my friends and I had gotten a room down, a motel down in Clearwater Beach. You did that kind of thing. I don't know if you still do that thing, but, and they got a keg. And so I had my first drink then. And it was great. It was beer. I didn't know beer. It was really good. And everybody drank all night long. They're drinking and they're passing out, and I'm drinking, and I'm very profound, by the way. I'm just saying these profound things that are just magical, and people are passing out on me, and so like people are crashing and passing out in the closet, in the bathrooms, all of the beds and everything. I didn't pass out. I didn't get sick. I was up all night drinking all night long, and this seemed like the best thing. It was like a superpower for me. I'm like, wow, I had this superpower. I didn't even know. And so it's like, it's an old story, girl meets alcohol, they fall in love, and live unhappily ever after until she finds recovery. So, it's an old story. When I would tell the story a while ago, I would say that, from that first drink, I didn't drink again for quite a while. And I would always say quite a while, like it was years. And it was like just a couple months, really. Looking back on it, I'm like, I don't know what I was talking about. And so it became, my drinking career. And so one of the things is I became a single mom, and I raised my son. And I wish I could say that I look at these young moms now in recovery, and I just think it's so wonderful to raise your child in recovery, because I did not do that. I raised my son while I was drinking. And I remember hearing somebody share her story that she had driven with her son in the car while she was drunk. And she was so ashamed of that. And I did it so much, because I drank so much. It wasn't something that seemed like a big deal to me when I first came in. It wasn't until later. And part of my story is I had a lot of DUIs, okay? So any of you people that are saying, well, I never had a DUI, I had them all for you. Okay? Add my share. And I don't mean to make light of driving drunk. I don't want to do that in any way. It's a serious, thank God nobody died, nobody was hurt when I was driving. But it was one of those, it's just part of my story. Kind of like my life became unmanageable because I was driving drunk. Well, that wasn't helpful. It's kind of like, it's like a shipwreck, like when a ship is sinking and you try to patch it, but you don't know how to fix it, and it just keeps sinking, and you're bailing it out. You just try bailing it out, and you don't know what else to do. And, what we knew, what I know, what you guys probably knew, is to keep drinking, because that made everything better, or at least it seemed like it made it better. And so that's what I did, and I worked for many years, and I always worked, because I'm a worker, I'm a little worker bee, and still am, and I was a landscaper. Okay, so I'm a landscaper in Florida, and you're thinking, well, that's not really a good occupation in Florida, but I was really good at it, I could out-dig those guys any day. There was one guy that I couldn't out-dig, but I kept trying. And I do the tractor and everything. And the thing was, they were all drinkers. They were all drinkers or pot smokers, And when I signed up for the job, when I got the job, it was hard to get. I'll take the job. They'll take anybody. So, anyways. So I get this job and I'm a landscaper, because it even has a title, landscaper. It sounds impressive, doesn't it? Digging, Anyway, so in the paperwork, the rules, it said that it says you can't come in drunk, and that one of the things was at the end of the week, you have to clean out the company trucks of all empty beer cans. And I'm like, well, that makes sense. Yeah, that seems perfectly logical. And I'm like, later I look back on that, I'm like, I think that was really a clue on what I was going into. And so when I started, we had they took 20-minute lunch breaks. And I wanted a real lunch break where it involved wine and pool, So by the time I left, they had over an hour lunch breaks. And we were shooting pool, drinking wine, and then we'd go out and dig holes in August sun. It was crazy, but somehow you do it. And so I did that for a long time. And so one of the things at that point, my life was still kind of spiraling. I had gotten married, and my husband, God bless him, he would say, when we were going out, or when I was going out, or whatever was going on, he'd say, Kenny, go easy. like that made sense. I didn't know what go easy meant. He was trying to say, don't drink so much, but he was saying, go easy. And I'm like, okay, yeah, okay. And he did that for 15 years. He kept saying that. Okay. Anyway, so at some point I finally got the first DUI. And I remember telling one of the guys at work, I said, if I had just gone a little bit to the left, I would have missed that other car. And he goes, Kim, if you'd gone a little bit to the right, you could have been dead. And I'm like, well, you're no fun. So I had to go to a DUI class, and one of the brilliant things that I took away, because I still didn't think I had a drinking problem, I was so ashamed when I got the DUI. I'm like, I hid in my room for a week. I didn't want anyone to know. Nobody in my family had ever gotten a DUI, and I was just so ashamed. And I'm never going to drink again. And so that lasted a couple weeks, because what I did was I said, I'm going to only drink on the weekends. And then the weekends became Monday through Friday, and then it became longer, and then I just started drinking again. But one of the things in the class that seemed so brilliant, it's just the craziness in this head, is that somebody said what she does, and she's in this DUI class with me, and so I'm looking to her for advice on how to drive drunk. And she said what she does is she throws her keys in the trunk. And that way she can't drive drunk when she leaves the bar. And I'm like, well, that is brilliant. And I'm like, I didn't even think about it, so I did it. And then I come out of the bar and I'm having a hissy fit because I can't get into the trunk. Now what am I? And they didn't have Ubers back then. This was a while ago. And so I'm just like, I had to break into my own car. It was just not a good idea. But that was like the first DUI. And then it was a miracle nobody was hurt, but I have to keep rolling because, with alcohol and the life is kind of, the ship is sinking, but I'm still bailing out. I'm bailing out and still drinking, and I got the second DUI. And the second DUI, you can tell it was quite a bit different for me because I had felt so ashamed on the first one. The second one, when I left the jail, I stopped and got a wine cooler on the way home. It had gotten really bad for me as far as my drinking. And of course, your life centers around that. You don't go anywhere there's not alcohol served or people aren't drinking. People say that they lost a lot of friends when they came in. I only lost the friends that I drank with, so yes, I lost all my friends. At this point, things were not going well with me. I was drinking a lot, and I did something that really was, kind of my, I would never do. One of those things that you would never do. Everybody's got something, everybody's got some line in the sand that you won't cross. And I had one, and it was that I would never cheat on my husband. And I cheated, I had an affair, I cheated on my husband. And because he was a great guy, not the guy I was cheating on. My husband was a great guy, okay? He's a great guy. But I was just, I was a drunk at that point. And so I'm so ashamed that I had done this, that I went, I got really depressed. And of course I got suicidal. And I ended up going to, they locked me up because I tried to kill myself. And I got out, and I'm like, I'm going to be better, as soon as I have a drink, I'll be much better. And it didn't hit me, even though I'd go to these places and they'd talk about the drinking and I'd lie because that's what you do, and I'm good at it, believe it or not. So I went, and then life goes on, and I had a second suicide attempt because I'm still having the affair. So it's like nothing is changing. I don't know why I'm not getting better. And so at one point, finally, I had a third DUI, and it was also a suicide attempt. Nobody got hurt. Certainly not me. But anyway, so again, they locked me up. And they've got me locked up, and they say, you have a choice here. Because of the 3 DUIs, you can go to state hospital, or you can go to a rehab. And I, in my wisdom, my clear thinking at this point, do you think that could happen, my clear thinking? So I'm thinking state hospital wouldn't be too bad. I'm like, it will add to my story for the book that I'm writing. It'll be great. I'll be meeting interesting people. I'm not crazy, so they'll let me out pretty quick. And the thing was, I wasn't writing a book. I'm like, this is going to be great for my book, but I wasn't writing one. And so, fortunately, saner heads prevailed, and I went to a rehab. And hallelujah, sister. It changed my life. It was the divine order in that it was time for me to, who's got their phone on? Who's expecting that? Anyway, so it's right at the good stuff. Anyway, I'm getting sober now, okay? This is the good stuff. This is what we're waiting for. So I'm in the rehab, and when I would this is another one of those things where I would tell this story, and I would say, well, I'm in the rehab, and so because they'd go out to these AA meetings and everything, and I said in my story, yeah, so I would go because I wanted the real coffee. Because we didn't have real coffee, we had decaf. I wanted a caffeine coffee. So I was telling the story. I don't know how, quite a few years I told this story. And suddenly it dawned on me, I was locked up in a rehab. There wasn't like an option. They said, get in the van and go to a meeting. And I'm like, oh yeah, now that I think about it, it's like it really wasn't an option. But I went to the meetings. I went to 301, Serenity Club, and I heard things that I thought I could be relevant to my life. And I kept listening. And the thing was, one of the things that I hung on to for years is that, well, for one thing, that whole first step didn't make any sense to me. You know, I didn't have a problem with alcohol, though my life was unmanageable. But I didn't have a problem with alcohol. But as I went to meetings and heard different things, I started hearing my story from different people or my characteristics. And so as I kept hearing these things, one of the things I also like to flash around like it's a big deal. I was an atheist, you know, and they have a chapter on the agnostic. They don't say the atheist. They try to incorporate that in, but, you know, it's not really relevant because I think an atheist is like, we made our mind up, damn it. At least, you know, we made our mind. Agnostics are like, could be, maybe, I don't know. You know, I'm like, I'm firm with this, you know. Even in a foxhole, I am not going to pray, okay? It's not happening. There's no God. And so, you know, I flagged this around and so, but I kept coming to meetings and I kept hearing these things and thinking that this could be a better way. And, you know, I became willing. It wasn't like there was a bolt of lightning. I wanted a bolt of lightning. But there was no bolt of lightning. It was a gradual thing where I was a fake it till you make it. And that's what I did. I just, you know, fake it till you make it. You know, they say get on your knees and pretend to pray. And so that's what I did. And I kept hearing these things that were relevant to me as far as, one of the things too was that I would say that I'm not as bad as the rest of them. I didn't drink in the morning. And, you know, because the bad ones drink in the morning. I don't do that. And, but then I come to realize, again, it came to me that I was doing wine coolers. I was I would take wine coolers and be drinking my wine coolers on the way to work. And I had a little cooler of wine coolers, but I felt like that was like orange juice, really. That's not drinking. That's not drinking in the morning, okay? So again, it's like as time went on, I started to see that I might have a drinking problem. And so another thing, as I'm starting to get better and I'm starting to hear these things, I call them gifts from God. Because in the beginning, as time would go on, I'd start thinking, you know, it wasn't that bad. You know, really, I wasn't that bad. You know, I wasn't drinking in the morning. Okay, then I found out I was. And then, you know, what did I do that was so bad? You know, and things would come to me like flashes. Like the time I sat on my husband's brother's wedding cake. You know, that was like, and I'm like, you know, and he still hasn't forgiven me for that. I just, you know, and so these things would come and I'd realize, yeah, I think I was pretty bad. But the point of my sharing with everybody is that when I did come, okay, so, you know, I'm this atheist and I'm like, dang it, I'm not going to be doing any of this stuff. And then I started, you know, fake it till you make it. And I'm still like, okay, I don't really believe this stuff. But it was going to Albertsons one day. I went to Albertsons and I'm getting some cookies and riding my bike because I have 3 DUIs, so you know, I'm going to be riding my bike for a while. And so I'm there with and getting my cookies, and I ran into this woman that I knew from AA, and we're just talking. You know, I was, you know, needed a little uplifting or whatever, and she had just the right things to say. And I walked out of there and I'm getting on my bike and I'm like, well, that was a weird coincidence that I kind of ran into her like that. And then I was like, I wonder if that was a God thing. And it was like I still, to this day when I say it, it just goes through my whole body because that was me opening the door just a little bit. And once I did that, everything changed for me. I mean, everything changed. I didn't become a nun or anything, but, you know, a lot of things changed. So anyway, so I started doing the steps. I got a sponsor. I hadn't picked up a white chip right away. And this is the truth. I was younger then, okay? And So I waited, down at 301, it was a crazy group. And so I waited for a good-looking guy to be handing out the chips before I would pick up the white chip. I'm like, okay, I'm not going to be hugged by just anybody, And so when I finally picked up my chip, it was kind of like I was a little slow on a lot of these things. I finally got a sponsor, and Scary Mary, she was something. And I liked her, though. I liked her. She was feisty. And so anyway, I remember calling her once, and I'm like, I'm just a little lonely, tired of riding that bike. I'm going to just go to the bar. I'm just going to go to the bar and have a Coke, just so I can, talk to some people and stuff. And I remember Mary, she'd be like, I don't think that's a good idea. I'm like, okay. So I didn't go. That's all it takes for me. Just kind of point out some of this stuff, and I'll be like, okay. And I'm going in a different direction. And so I did the steps, and my life changed, and everything changed, and it didn't end there. It'd be great if I could say, okay, I stepped in, and I'm all good, everything's good and everything. But life happens. And the great thing for me is that good things happen, really great things. I ended up going back to college, and finishing college. I'm riding a bike. What are the odds that I'm going to be able to go to USF and finish school? But it worked out that way, because, I did have to go to jail a little bit. That's a whole nother story. We won't go into that. But anyway, but I ended up getting my degree, and when I'm over there, I'm because I was a landscaper, and so I'm studying botany. And so I'm working at the botanical gardens there, and doing my internship. And some guy walks up to me, and he introduces himself, and he says he's the new director of the botanical garden, and they've just created this position, and they wanted to know if I'd like it. And I'm like, okay. But it was one of those things where it's like my higher power said, what job would be perfect for Kim? It was the perfect job for me. It was working in a botanical garden. I love plants. That's a magical thing. And so I was there for 25 years. And, I retired, and people were sad to see me go, believe it or not. You can believe that. Anyway, so, of course, like back in the old days, I threw myself a going-away party. Anyway, it was great times. I did a play. Everybody was in the play. Anyway, but the thing is, with my recovery, what's important is that with my recovery, I've gone through a lot of, you hear about people coming in and getting excited and everything. And I was really excited. I was really involved for 10 years, and I was doing the deal. And then I got complacent. Because I had this great job, and I'm doing that. And I started to get complacent. I always went to meetings, but we had moved, so I'd lost my home group. And I got a car, so I wasn't on the bike anymore. Things change. And so I'm doing this, and I didn't have a sponsor. My sponsor passed away. And so I'm just kind of on my own. And I'm knowing that there's something missing. I still had my program, but I could feel that something was missing. And so, I started taking yoga. That's not it. It's good, but not it. Anyway, and then, I started going to different churches, looking for something. And a friend of mine said, Kim, I know this meeting on Monday, because I always had Monday off. And she said, it's at 9:30. Why don't you come to the Progress Not Perfection meeting? Give it a try. It's a bunch of ladies, And I'm like, ladies. Okay, I'll try it. And so I go to this meeting, and it's okay. It's a nice meeting. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'll go back. And see how, I'll give it one more try, like I'm the princess here, can they earn my trust, Anyway, so I'm like, okay, so I'll go back, and I went back again, and I still remember it. I walked in the room, and there's this woman, Barbara, and she's just this dignified, lovely woman, and she said, Kim's here, and I just was overwhelmed with a sense of belonging, finding a home. which is what you guys have here at this meeting. So many of you guys have found this meeting, and it's a beautiful thing, and I can tell it. Walking in, there's just this camaraderie and this sense of home that you have, and it's beautiful. And I found that with progress, not perfection. And not only that, but I got a sponsor. So, because I hadn't had a sponsor for a long time. And I started doing more of the work. And I forgot to mention, this is kind of important, that I did the steps. I did all the steps. But I stopped. I didn't do 11 and 12. I mean, I went through them with my sponsor. But I'm like, that's a lot. In all our affairs, come on. There's work, there's other things that we can do, and they can be in the meetings, but all our affairs, I really felt like the nuns and the priests might do those things, those higher meditation things, and so that was not for me for a long time. But I have to say, I'm here to tell you that today, because I found the progress, not perfection, because I found a sponsor, because I started doing the deal again, I am back involved and growing and growing and growing and growing. Okay, maybe not that fast, but, I'm growing. I'm growing. And it's just the best thing because I found I do the two-way prayer. You can do whatever you do, I love the two-way prayer. And I have found such a depth in my relationship with my higher power. It's unbelievable. I mean, I really used to make fun of people that meditated, and there I am. I don't cross my legs. Those days are long gone, ladies, Like even in yoga, I'm like, maybe not. But anyway, I have my favorite chair that I sit in and I do it. And even my dog comes in and sits and stares at me like I'm doing something magical, Okay, he's waiting for a treat. But I like to think that there's a reason for it. But the whole point for me is that if you're new, it's like it gets so much better. We weave our way through all the debris that we've accumulated as far as our habits and our character defects and our fears. And we go through all that and find our way out to this different world. I mean, it's like a different person here than when I first came in. And I've gone through stages, but it's always the growth. It's always the growth. And I don't know if I can tell more, but it's a life second to none. I want people to know that when I came in, I didn't want to do it. I didn't think I needed it. And yet everybody else seemed to think that I needed it. And so I found my way into these rooms, and I'm so grateful. And I'm grateful you listened to me. That's all I got.
Thank you so much, Kim, for sharing your experience, strength, and hope with us. We passed the basket in accordance with the settled tradition. Also, a second basket went around for ASL donation. You can pick up meeting sheets at the podium after the meeting. Let's give tonight's speakers another round of applause.